Atlanta shimmered like a fractured jewel beneath the neon haze of 2145. Drones hovered over cracked asphalt, tracing lines of light through humid air that smelled faintly of metal and rain. The city had grown tall but divided, zones marked in pale blue for humans, violet for Kalani refugees. From above it looked almost peaceful. On the ground, tension simmered like an old wound refusing to heal. Malik Turner wiped sweat from his brow as the orbital shuttle descended toward Hartsfield Port. The vibration hummed deep in his chest, the same sound he'd grown up hearing, the rhythm of machines, of progress, of people trying to reach somewhere better. He was 32 now, an aerospace mechanic with a mind sharper than most and hands that remembered every bolt and turbine by touch alone. His skin glistened with oil and resilience. He carried his father's old wrench in his jacket pocket like a charm. As the shuttle doors opened, the passengers hurried past a row of scanning drones. The machines pulsed red whenever they detected alien biomatter. Malik slowed, watching a Kalani mother clutching her child as the red light flickered across their faces. The officer's voice was sharp. "Step aside for secondary screening." The child began to cry softly. Malik's jaw tightened. He turned away before the anger showed. "Atlanta's changing, bro," said a voice behind him. It was Jalen, one of the younger techs, laughing through the discomfort. "Whole city feel like a test chamber now." "Yeah," Malik replied. "They testing how much folks can stand before they break." That night, as he walked through Mechanicsville, the sounds of gospel and bass lines leaked from open windows. The streets were alive with food stands, laughter, and street vendors selling glowing jewelry made from salvaged tech. This was the Atlanta he loved, the one that still danced through struggle, that carried rhythm in its bones. Yet every corner had a drone watching. Every shadow held the weight of policy. He stopped by Mama D's cafe, where the fried plantains always smelled like home. Inside, the old woman smiled from behind the counter. "Baby, you look tired," she said. "Long shifts," he answered, sitting by the window. "They got us inspecting every ship that comes from the Kalani sectors now." "Fear make folks forget they're human," she murmured, sliding him a plate. "Don't let it take your heart, Malik." Outside, thunder rumbled. He looked out and saw two armored trucks speed past, bearing the insignia of the U.S. Genetic Ethics Division. A small protest had gathered near the junction, voices rising with signs that read, "We all bleed the same." The trucks didn't slow down. He thought of his mother's voice years ago, teaching him about dignity and faith during darker times. "The system's going to try to write your story for you," she had said. "You just make sure you keep the pen." A flash of lightning revealed the skyline, the divided sectors glowing like two different worlds stitched by power lines and hope. Malik finished his meal in silence, the rain beginning to fall heavier outside. When he reached his apartment, the power flickered twice before stabilizing. He sat by the window, listening to the rain beat against the metal ledge. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Somewhere else, a baby cried. He didn't know it yet, but that sound, the cry of someone unseen, unwanted, would soon pull him into a storm that would test everything he believed about humanity. Before we go deeper into this story, remember, if you believe courage still matters in a world that's forgotten what empathy feels like, hit subscribe and stay with us until the end. The rain softened into a whisper as Malik leaned back, eyes half closed. The city pulsed with lights below, indifferent and alive. For a moment he wondered if the future they'd built was really theirs, or just another cage made of progress. Somewhere beyond the next block, beyond the rain and neon, destiny waited for him, in the cry of an alien mother he had yet to meet. The rain hadn't stopped by the time Malik left the port the next evening. It came down in sheets that blurred the neon lights, turning the streets into rivers of reflected color. He pulled his hood low and moved quickly through the alleys of Old Fourth Ward, avoiding the patrol drones that glided silently above. His shift had ended hours ago, but he couldn't shake the unease that had followed him all day. Something in the air felt wrong, thick, charged, like the city itself was holding its breath. He took a shortcut behind an abandoned cafe, one of those places that had once played jazz on Fridays before the new regulations banned alien gatherings. The metallic smell of wet trash filled the narrow path. He was halfway through when he heard it, a sound so raw it froze him in place. A cry. Not human. Not quite alien either. It was desperate, trembling, full of pain. Malik turned slowly, scanning the shadows. A faint blue glow pulsed from behind a dumpster. He hesitated, instinct screaming to walk away. The last thing he needed was to get involved in alien trouble. But then the cry came again, softer this time, like a plea. He stepped closer. Behind the dumpster, a woman crouched on the ground, her translucent skin shimmering faintly beneath the rain. She was Kalani, no doubt, taller than a human, with faint ridges running down her neck like silver veins. Her eyes, large and liquid black, locked onto his. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Help me." Malik froze. He'd seen Kalani before, mostly at the port. Workers, refugees, a few traders, but never one this close, never one who looked so human in her fear. "You hurt?" he asked cautiously. She nodded, clutching her arm. The sleeve of her tattered cloak was dark with blood that shimmered faintly blue. "They took my baby," she said. "Humans, soldiers, from the white trucks." Malik's breath caught. "The trucks from the ethics division?" Her nod was slow, pained. "They said it was for study, for safety, but my baby, my child, he is only days old." Her voice broke on the last words, and for a moment the rain was the only sound between them. He looked away, heart pounding. Helping her meant risk. The law was clear. Aiding an undocumented alien was a federal crime. But walking away felt like betrayal, like every story his grandmother used to tell about those who stayed silent when wrong was done. "Where are you from?" he asked, buying time, thinking fast. She tilted her head, confused by the question. "From the Sea of Stars," she said softly. "But I came here seeking peace. My name is Salira." Malik swallowed hard. "I can't promise much," he said finally. "But I can get you out the rain at least." When he helped her up, her hand was cold, lighter than he expected. She winced but didn't pull away. As they moved down the alley, a drone passed overhead, its red scanner beam slicing through the rain. Malik pushed her against the wall, holding his breath until the hum faded. His pulse raced. "You shouldn't help me," she murmured. "They will come for you, too." He gave a half smile. "Too late. Guess I already started." By the time they reached his car, a battered old ground cruiser parked 2 blocks away, Salira could barely stand. Malik opened the door and looked around once more. The city was quiet except for the rain. But somewhere distant, a siren began to wail, and he knew the ethics division wouldn't stop until they found her. As he pulled onto the street, Salira looked out the window, her reflection merging with the city lights. "Why do you help me, human?" she asked softly. Malik thought for a moment, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Because once upon a time," he said, "they took from us too." The words hung between them, heavy and true. The rain eased into mist as the car disappeared into the night, carrying 2 souls bound by loss toward a truth neither was ready to face. End of Part 2, 6 out of 70 words. Would you like me to continue with Part 3, The Hidden Truth, 6 out of 70 words? Part 3, The Hidden Truth, 670 words. The sun hadn't yet risen when Malik pulled the cruiser into the cracked driveway of his apartment building. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that belonged to early mornings and worn-down dreams. He parked behind a broken fence, cut the engine, and sat for a moment, trying to calm the pounding in his chest. The air smelled of wet asphalt and fried food from a distant diner. Beside him, Salira stirred weakly. "Stay low," he whispered. "My neighbors don't ask questions, but they sure love to talk." He helped her out of the car, guiding her through the stairwell that smelled of mildew and paint thinner. His apartment was small, 1 bedroom, scattered tools, half-fixed drone parts on the table. But it was clean, familiar, safe enough. Salira looked around, her black eyes wide with wonder and caution. "It's warm," she murmured. Malik grabbed a towel and handed it to her. "Ain't much, but it'll do." He watched her carefully as she dried her hands. The faint blue glow under her skin pulsed softly, fading and returning like a heartbeat. She seemed fragile, yet every movement carried quiet strength. "Tell me what happened," he said, pulling up a chair. She hesitated, as if the words might break her. "I gave birth 3 nights ago," she began. "My son was born under hiding light in the lower refugee tunnels near the river. He was smaller, half my color, half yours. His skin was brown like the Earth people." She paused, eyes distant. "I thought that meant safety." Malik's jaw clenched. "The white trucks, you said they took him?" "Yes. Soldiers came in the night. They said the child must be examined. They said his DNA might reveal danger to both our kinds." Her voice trembled. "They called him Specimen." He felt the word cut through him like metal. He'd seen those trucks around the port, always guarded, always cold. He'd told himself the rumors about experiments, about disappearances, were exaggerations. Now he wasn't so sure. "Do you know where they took him?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "A place near the river, tall walls, lights that burn even when the sky sleeps." Malik frowned. "That's the Federal Research District. No one gets in there without clearance." Before he could say more, the door buzzer went off. His heart jumped. He peeked through the security cam. Jada. He opened the door just enough for her to slip in. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said, brushing rain off her coat. "Keep your voice down," Malik hissed. She glanced toward the living room and froze when she saw Salira. "Malik, what the hell is that?" "She's not a that," he said sharply. "Her name's Salira." Jada's eyes widened. "You brought an alien into your apartment? Do you realize what happens if someone finds out?" "I couldn't leave her," Malik said. "They took her baby, Jada, government trucks, same kind that roll through the port." Jada's expression softened slightly, but fear lingered in her voice. "You can't fix this, Malik. They'll trace everything. Drones read heat signatures, cell pings, everything." "Then help me cover it," he said. "You still got access to the press grid, right? Maybe you can find something, an incident report, lab list, anything about a baby." She sighed, running a hand over her braids. "You're out of your damn mind." But then she looked at Salira again, at the way the alien woman's trembling hands clutched the towel like a lifeline. "I'll see what I can do." When Jada left, Malik turned back to Salira. Her eyes glistened in the dim light. "Thank you," she whispered. He wanted to say it was nothing, but the truth weighed heavy in his chest. Helping her wasn't just kindness, it was rebellion. As dawn crept through the blinds, Malik realized there was no turning back. Somewhere out there, a child born of 2 worlds waited for rescue. And in the heart of Atlanta, a secret bigger than either species was beginning to stir. The city glowed electric blue that night, its skyline humming with the pulse of machines and quiet desperation. Malik walked fast, hands deep in his jacket pockets, rain dripping from the edges of his hood. The streets around the government district were always too clean, too polished, the kind of sterile order that made his stomach twist. He had memorized every camera post and drone path on his route to the lab. He wasn't breaking in tonight, he wasn't ready, but he needed information, and there was only one person who could help. Jamal Reeves. They'd grown up together on the same block, both kids who could take apart a circuit board faster than they could tie a tie. Jamal had chosen a safer path, medical school research contracts and eventually a post inside the genetics division. Malik had chosen machines, ships and the grit of real work. They hadn't spoken in years. He found Jamal in the back of a sleek cafe just outside the research zone, sipping black coffee under a holographic menu. The man looked older than Malik remembered, edges sharper, eyes dimmer. "Malik Turner," Jamal said with a low whistle. "Didn't expect to see you here. Last I heard, you were fixing engines, not chasing ghosts." Malik sat down across from him. "You still working for the division?" Jamal's expression tightened. "You came all this way to ask that?" "I came because I need answers," Malik said quietly. "About a baby, half Kalani, taken by government trucks 2 nights ago." The air between them went still. Jamal glanced around, lowering his voice. "You don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly what I'm asking," Malik replied. "Where are they holding the child?" Jamal rubbed his temple, exhaling slowly. "You shouldn't be involved in this. You're not even supposed to know it exists. I know a mother's crying for her baby, Malik said, voice steady. That's enough. Jamal stared at him for a long moment. Then he leaned in. If what you're saying is true, the baby would be under Level C containment. That's deep inside the primary complex, below surface. Only 3 clearance codes can open it, and every entry is monitored. Malik frowned. What are they doing with it? Jamal hesitated. Studying genetic compatibility, trying to understand how cross-species DNA works. But Malik, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Some think the child could change everything. If hybrids can exist, it means humans aren't the only ones who can thrive here. That threatens people at the top. Malik clenched his fists beneath the table. So they're keeping a baby prisoner because it scares them. Because it rewrites the story of who we are, Jamal said quietly. You remember how long it took for them to accept us as equals, brother? You think they're ready to share the planet? The words hit deep. Malik remembered his grandmother's stories about old protests, about fighting for recognition, about how history always repeated. New faces, same chains. You could help me, Malik said. Get me in. Jamal shook his head. You don't know what you're asking for. That place isn't built for mercy. Every door, every camera, AI tracks everything. You'd have 10 seconds before alarms hit. I'll figure it out, Malik said. Jamal looked at him with something like sorrow. I wish I could forget what I've seen in there. You think you're saving one child, but you're walking into a system that feeds on fear. Malik stood, the rain from his coat dripping onto the floor. Then maybe it's time someone made it choke. As he turned to leave, Jamal called out, If you're going to do this, don't go alone, and don't trust anyone wearing a badge. Malik gave a grim nod and stepped back into the night. The rain had stopped, but thunder rolled far away like the city itself was warning him. Above the towers, the neon sky glowed brighter than ever, too bright, too silent, hiding more than it revealed. Somewhere behind those lights, a baby waited, and Malik knew the walls between truth and survival were thinner than he'd ever imagined. Blake spent the next day drifting through his neighborhood like a ghost. The sun burned hot against cracked concrete, the air heavy with the smell of fried catfish and exhaust. Vendors shouted along Auburn Avenue, their voices blending with the hum of traffic and the distant bass from a passing hovercar. It should have felt like home, but every sound carried tension now, every face seemed to look twice. Word of the government raids had spread fast. People whispered that another roundup was coming, though no one dared say it loud. He walked past the barber shop where old men argued about politics and music, past murals of civil rights leaders painted on fading walls. He stopped at a small community hall where an open-door meeting was taking place. Inside, voices rose in frustration. They come for them today, an older man said, his voice deep and cracked. Tomorrow they come for us again. History don't stop, it just changes uniforms. Another woman spoke up. They say the aliens don't belong here. But how long before they decide we don't belong either? Malik leaned against the doorway, unnoticed for a moment. The room was filled with people he'd known all his life. Neighbors, teachers, workers from the port. Their faces carried the same exhaustion he saw in the mirror every morning. You gonna say something, Malik? Mama D asked from the back, her silver hair shining under the dim light. So you always got thoughts? He hesitated. What's there to say? A younger man crossed his arms. Say that we done fighting battles that ain't ours. Let the aliens deal with their own. The words hit him like a slap. Malik's throat tightened. You think injustice picks sides? He asked quietly. If we turn away now, we just teaching them how to treat us next. A hush fell over the room. The older man nodded slowly. Boy's right, he said, but standing up costs, always has. Malik met their eyes one by one. Yeah, he said, but what's the point of freedom if we only use it to stay safe? The conversation continued, shifting from anger to uneasy hope, but Malik's mind had already drifted. He thought of Salira back at his apartment, resting under his worn blanket, whispering her child's name in her sleep. The image wouldn't leave him. Every word Jamal had said echoed in his head. You'd have 10 seconds before alarms hit. When the meeting ended, Mama D caught up to him outside. "You walking heavy today," she said. "Feels like the whole world's pressing down," he answered. "World always been heavy," she said with a soft chuckle. "Question is, what you going to do with the weight?" Malik didn't answer. He stared at the skyline, where the government district's towers rose cold and silver against the dusk. For a long time, he'd believed progress meant moving forward quietly, fixing what was broken one piece at a time. But now, silence felt like surrender. Back home, the apartment was dim. Salira sat by the window, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "You were gone long," she said softly. "Needed to think," he replied, dropping into the chair across from her. Her gaze was steady. "Thinking does not free the child." Malik looked away. "No, it doesn't." "Then you will help me?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah." "I will." Her hands trembled slightly. "You risk your life for one not of your kind. Why?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe kind don't matter anymore." The silence that followed was thick but peaceful, filled with understanding that didn't need words. Malik felt the fear in his chest settle into resolve. He wasn't a soldier, wasn't a hero, but he knew how to build things and how to break them. Outside, thunder rolled over the city again, deep and slow. Malik rose and pulled the blinds shut. The weight on his shoulders hadn't disappeared. It had simply become purpose. Tomorrow he would start planning. The next morning, the city looked cleaner than it had any right to be. Sunlight bounced off the chrome towers, hiding the grime of what lay beneath. Malik sat at his small table, surrounded by scraps of paper, half-dismantled tech and a datapad glowing with stolen schematics. He hadn't slept. Every thought, every breath, circled back to one thing: the plan. Salira watched him quietly from the couch, her silver-blue skin catching the light. "You have decided," she said, more statement than question. "Yeah," he answered, eyes fixed on the screen. "But deciding's the easy part." She tilted her head. "You humans build your courage like walls, brick by brick, until you cannot see what is beyond them." Malik gave a small smile. "Guess I'll need those walls where I'm going." He zoomed in on a map of the genetics division compound. The layers of security were worse than Jamal had described: biometric locks, thermal grids, drone patrols, and a constant flow of data from the central tower. Breaking in was almost impossible, but almost wasn't never. He marked a section labeled Maintenance Access 7B. It led through the underbelly of the complex, air filtration shafts, waste conduits, and power lines that stretched beneath the main structure. It was old infrastructure, probably overlooked by automated systems. "That's how we get in," he murmured. Salira approached, her voice soft but steady. "We?" He hesitated. "I'll need help," he admitted. "Someone who can bypass the security grid from the outside. My sister might know how." "Jada," Salira said, remembering the name. "She fears for you." "She has reason to," Malik replied, "but she also hates being told no." Hours later, he met Jada behind the old train depot near West End. The air smelled of rust and ozone, a reminder of when the city used to move by rails instead of air. She was already waiting, arms crossed, wearing that look that meant she'd been thinking too much. "I saw the reports," she said before he could speak. "They're looking for a missing subject of interest." "That you?" Malik sighed. "The mother's name is Salira. Her baby's locked up somewhere in that lab. I'm getting him out." "Malik, that's not a rescue mission. That's suicide," she snapped. You can't fight the government." "I'm not fighting them," he said quietly. "I'm just taking back what they stole." Jada stared at him, torn between fear and pride. "You sound just like Dad before he marched," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Guess it runs in the family." She exhaled hard, pulling out her tablet. "All right. You're gonna need an entry code to even reach the main grid." "I can spoof one, but you'll have a minute, maybe less, before the system notices. Once you're in, find the data core and disable the motion sensors manually. After that, You're on your own. Malik nodded. That's all I need. As she worked, Malik watched her hands move across the screen. Jada had inherited their mother's precision, steady, patient, relentless. He wanted to tell her thank you, but the words stuck in his throat. When she finally handed him a small encrypted drive, her eyes softened. Promise me one thing, she said. You come back. He slipped the drive into his pocket. I'll try. Try harder, she said, then pulled him into a hug. For a brief moment, all the noise, fear, and chaos faded. There was just family. Two siblings standing on opposite sides of a dangerous choice. When he returned home, Salira stood by the window, watching the city's lights blink to life as night approached. Malik joined her, both silent for a while. Tomorrow, he said finally. She nodded. Tomorrow. Outside, the sky deepened into violet, and the hum of drones grew louder, circling high above the towers. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. And somewhere inside Malik Turner, fear and faith became the same thing. The night air was sharp, humming with quiet tension. Malik crouched beneath the bridge leading to the research district, heart beating steady and fast. The encrypted drive Jada had given him was warm in his palm, its small blinking light like a pulse that matched his own. Above him, the glow of the facility spread against the horizon, white walls, tall towers, and endless surveillance. It didn't look like a place built for mercy. He whispered to himself, You built ships, Malik. You can build a way in. The service tunnel loomed ahead, marked with a faded sign that read, Maintenance Access 7B. The same line he had traced on the schematics 100 times. A rusted gate sealed it off, but he'd come prepared. Pulling a compact arc cutter from his bag, he pressed it to the metal. The hiss of heat filled the air, bright sparks scattering like fireflies. Within seconds, the gate gave way. He slipped inside. The tunnel smelled of damp concrete and ozone, the hum of power conduits echoing through the darkness. Malik moved cautiously, every sound amplified. Somewhere far above, drones hummed like mechanical hornets. He thought of Salira, of the way her voice trembled when she said her child's name. That memory pushed him forward. Halfway down the corridor, a small interface panel flickered on the wall. He connected Jada's drive and waited. The holographic display blinked twice, then opened a narrow channel through the internal grid. All right, Jada, he whispered. Let's see if you were right. A quiet ping answered, and a small voice came through his earpiece. Reading you, little brother. Signal's unstable, but I'm in. You've got 60 seconds to bypass the first gate. Malik worked fast, overriding the secondary lock. The panel flashed green. Gate's open, Jada said. Now move. You've got drones looping every 8 minutes. Stay off the main sensors. Copy that. He pressed onward, climbing through a vent shaft that led into the facility's lower level. The sound of machinery grew louder. Pumps, generators, distant footsteps. When he dropped into a narrow corridor, sterile light bathed him in white. The walls were smooth, too perfect, and his reflection ghosted across them. He pulled his hood lower and moved fast. At the first corner, a security droid floated past, scanning the hall. Malik flattened against the wall, holding his breath as the beam of light slid across the floor inches from his boots. His pulse thundered. When it passed, he exhaled shakily and whispered, Still human after all that. He reached a reinforced door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Another lock. He plugged in the drive again. The seconds stretched, the system fighting back with lines of code flashing across the small display. Come on, he muttered. Malik, Jada's voice broke through, tense now. You've got movement. 2 guards headed your way. Just give me 5 more seconds. The lock clicked. The door slid open with a hiss, and Malik darted through. Inside, the air was colder. Rows of pods lined the walls, each one filled with a soft blue mist. He approached one, his breath catching. Inside floated a small Kalani infant, eyes closed, breathing shallow, connected to wires that pulsed gently with light. Dozens of them. What are they doing here? He whispered. Malik, Jada called again. You need to move. The system just flagged an unauthorized entry. He tore his gaze away, forcing himself toward the next door. Whatever was happening here was bigger than Salira's child, but he couldn't think about that now. Focus. Get the baby. Get out. The next corridor stretched ahead like a vein of white light. Malik steadied himself and whispered a quiet prayer his mother had taught him, short, steady, made for times when fear pressed too close. Then he ran, the sound of alarms beginning to stir far in the distance, faint but growing. Malik pressed through the final corridor, sweat running down his neck. The alarms had not yet reached this section, but the red lights above the doors had begun to flicker, a warning that time was running thin. His footsteps echoed softly over the sterile floor, each one louder in his ears than it should have been. He counted the numbered rooms as he passed them, C41, C42, C43. Then he saw it, Containment C44. The door bore two seals, Genetic Ethics Division and Level C Biohazard. He inserted Jada's drive into the console. The lock resisted, stalling for a long second before the light turned green. Malik exhaled, almost laughing from relief. Inside, the air felt colder, heavy with antiseptic and electricity. The room was small, illuminated by a single vertical beam of white light. At its center sat a transparent pod, cylindrical and filled with faint blue mist. Malik stepped closer, and the world seemed to narrow into silence. Inside the pod was a child, tiny, wrapped in synthetic fiber, his chest rising and falling in slow, peaceful rhythm. The baby's skin was a soft brown, tinged faintly with silver beneath the surface. His hair, fine, black and curling, clung to his forehead. Malik stared, frozen, his breath caught halfway. He whispered, "You're real." The pod's display flickered to life beside him, rows of data streaming upward. Subject 0092A, Hybrid Viability Trial. The rest blurred past until one line stopped him cold. Human genetic contributor, Turner Malik, Technician ID 9824. He staggered back, the words cutting through him like static. "No," he muttered. "That's impossible." He scrolled again, reading and rereading, but the data didn't change. His ID number, his DNA profile, somehow connected to the hybrid. For a moment, the air felt too thin. His hands trembled as he leaned on the console. Jada's voice crackled faintly through the earpiece. "Malik, what's happening?" "You've gone quiet." He swallowed hard. "They used me," he said softly. "My work? My samples. They must have taken them from the port." "What do you mean?" "I think this baby... he's part of me." Silence stretched on the line. Then Jada's whisper came back, shaken. "You have to get him out of there." He nodded slowly, pulling the emergency release lever. Steam hissed as the pod unlocked, the mist spilling into the air like breath in winter. Malik reached in, his hands trembling, and lifted the infant carefully. The warmth of the small body against his chest startled him. It felt human, completely and utterly human. The baby stirred, eyelids fluttering open for a moment. His eyes shimmered dark blue before settling into a deep brown that mirrored Malik's own. The sound that escaped Malik's throat was half laugh, half sob. "It's okay," he whispered. "I got you now." Behind him, a soft beep pulsed from the control panel. Then another. The security override had triggered. "Malik," Jada said sharply, "your location just pinged on the internal system. You've got company moving fast, 2, maybe 3 guards heading your way." He tightened his grip on the baby and scanned the room. There was no other exit. He spotted a vent grate near the floor, just wide enough to crawl through. He yanked it open, slipping the baby into the sling he'd fashioned from his jacket. The child gave a small cry, barely audible, and Malik's heart clenched. "I'm coming, little man," he whispered. "We're getting out." As he slid into the narrow shaft, metal scraped under his palms. The sounds of boots echoed down the hallway, closer, faster. He glanced back once, seeing shadows through the glass door, then pushed forward into the dark. Every breath burned, every inch crawled with fear. Yet under it all, something stronger stirred, a fierce, unshakable will he didn't recognize as courage until that moment. Behind him, the alarms roared to life. Ahead, only silence waited. The vent shaft was narrow, lined with cold metal that scraped Malik's arms as he crawled. The baby pressed against his chest gave a faint whimper, the sound echoing like thunder in the confined space. He whispered softly, "Shh, we're almost out, little one." His voice trembled, not from fear of capture, but from the weight of what he carried. Behind him, shouts erupted. The metallic clang of boots struck the floor in rhythm with blaring alarms. Red light bled through the slats of the vent, painting the walls in pulses. The baby stirred again, and Malik prayed he wouldn't cry. "Malik," Jada's voice hissed through the earpiece, distorted by static. "You need to move. They're sealing sections of the lower floor." "I'm trying," he muttered, pushing forward. "Vent leads toward the maintenance corridor, right?" "Yeah, but it's monitored. You'll have to cut power manually before it opens." "Look for junction node 12A. It should be marked with yellow tape." He gritted his teeth, every muscle burning. Finally, the shaft widened into a small junction where cables twisted like vines. There, a yellow-marked box bolted to the wall. Malik reached for his cutter, holding the baby with one arm. Sweat ran down his temple, blurring his vision. He set the cutter's charge and sliced through the power line. Sparks jumped, plunging the shaft into darkness. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the hum of the ventilation grid stopped. "Power's down," he whispered. "Good," Jada said. "Now get to the surface before backup systems boot." "I'm rerouting their drone patrols, but it'll buy you maybe 5 minutes." Malik kicked the vent grate open and dropped into a dim hallway. The smell of ozone and metal filled the air. Emergency lights blinked along the floor, leading toward the exit. He ran, clutching the child tight. His boots slapped the tiles, echoing down the corridor. Halfway through, a voice called out behind him. "Freeze!" He spun. 2 guards stood at the far end, weapons drawn, armored suits reflecting the red light. One raised a scanner that pulsed green across Malik's chest. "Unauthorized bioform detected," the device barked. Malik didn't wait. He darted into a side passage, heart hammering. A plasma bolt scorched the wall inches from his head, the heat grazing his skin. The baby let out a cry, sharp, desperate. Malik's instincts surged. He shielded the child and kept running. "Jada," he gasped, "I need an exit now." Her reply came fast, voice trembling. "There's a maintenance tunnel on your left, door code 22B4. It should lead to the outer filtration ducts." He reached the door, typed the code with shaking fingers, and stumbled through as it opened. The tunnel beyond sloped downward, narrow and slick. Alarms echoed faintly from behind, but the noise was fading. Malik's lungs burned. His legs felt like lead. When he finally slowed, a shadow moved ahead. A man stepped into the faint light of a flickering panel. It was Jamal. "Malik," Jamal said, voice low. "You actually did it." Malik froze. "You knew," he accused, breath ragged. "You knew they used me." Jamal's eyes held both guilt and resolve. "I tried to warn you, this whole project, none of us had a choice." "You worked on this?" Malik snapped. "On him?" He tightened his grip around the baby. Jamal's gaze flickered to the child, softening. "They were going to terminate the hybrids. I diverted the order, bought time." "You have to go now." "Why help me?" "Because I remember who I was before this job," Jamal said quietly. "Before I started trading humanity for comfort." He pointed toward the end of the tunnel. "That exit leads to the drainage field. It's unguarded for now." Malik hesitated. "Come with me." Jamal shook his head. "Someone has to erase your trail." Their eyes met, a silent exchange between 2 men bound by loyalty and regret. Malik nodded once, then turned away. "Go," Jamal said. "And Malik, protect him. He's more than either of us understand." As Malik disappeared into the darkness, Jamal pulled his ID card and swiped it across the control panel. The alarms blared louder, echoing down the hall. Malik didn't look back. He ran until the air tasted like freedom and rain again. But deep inside he knew escape was never the end. It was just the beginning of another chase. Rain fell again by the time Malik reached the outskirts of Mechanicsville. The city lights glowed dim through the mist, distant now, as if watching him from another world. His muscles ached, his jacket was torn, and his hands were raw, but he didn't stop. The baby slept against his chest, wrapped in his coat, his tiny breaths warm and steady. Each step felt heavier, but the thought of Salira waiting pushed him forward. He slipped through back streets until the old church came into view, a weathered stone building that had survived every storm Atlanta had thrown at it. The sign above the door still read, St. Miriam's Hope Center, though half the letters had faded. Inside, dim lights flickered over pews stacked with supplies and blankets, the faint smell of incense mixed with dust. Salira looked up as he entered. For a heartbeat, disbelief crossed her face, then joy so fierce it made Malik's throat tighten. She rose, unsteady, her hands trembling. "You found him," she whispered. Malik nodded and carefully unwrapped the child. "He's safe now." She took the baby into her arms, her eyes shimmering as she pressed her forehead to his. The child stirred, cooing softly, and Salira's body shook with silent sobs. Malik looked away, giving her the moment she deserved. When she finally spoke, her voice was small but steady. "He remembers me." "He never forgot," Malik said gently. She smiled faintly, the expression fragile. "His name is Lumen." "Lumen," Malik repeated, tasting the word. "Means light, right?" She nodded. "In my tongue, it means the light that endures." They sat together near the altar. The church was quiet except for the soft hum of rain on the roof. Malik felt exhaustion settling into his bones, but relief too, an aching, fragile kind of peace. "I saw other children in that place," he said after a while. "Dozens of them. They're using people's DNA, mine included." Salira looked at him, eyes wide with shock. "Yours?" He hesitated. "They had my name on the file. I don't know how, but somehow they used me. My samples from work, maybe." She studied him, her gaze both curious and tender. "Then you are part of him," she said quietly. "You are part of us." The words struck something deep in him. He'd spent his whole life repairing machines, following rules, keeping his head down. But now, for the first time, he felt connected to something larger than survival. A soft creak interrupted his thoughts. Jada stepped from the shadows, her face pale with worry. "You made it," she said, relief flooding her voice. "I lost your signal halfway through. Thought I'd never see you again." Malik managed a tired smile. "You know me. Stubborn runs in the family." She glanced at Salira and the baby. "So that's him?" "Yeah," Malik said. "His name's Lumen." Jada's eyes softened as she knelt beside them. "He's beautiful." Then her tone darkened. "But you need to know. Word's out. They've marked you as a fugitive, Malik, and the division won't stop." "I figured," he said quietly. "We can't stay here long," Jada continued. "I've got a few people who can help move you. Underground routes, safe houses outside city limits." Salira held Lumen close, her voice trembling. "We will go wherever we must." Jada looked at Malik. "You sure about this? Once you disappear, there's no coming back." Malik met her gaze, the weight of the night behind his eyes. "There wasn't any going back the moment I walked into that lab." Outside, thunder rolled again, deep and distant. Inside the church, the baby's small laughter echoed softly, a fragile sound of life cutting through the storm. Malik looked at him, then at the two women beside him. For the first time in days, he felt something close to hope. "Tomorrow," he said quietly. "We move tomorrow." And though he tried to rest, sleep never came. The storm outside matched the one inside his chest, loud, relentless, but alive. Morning came slow, grey and heavy. The storm had broken, leaving puddles glinting like mirrors across the cracked pavement outside the church. Malik watched the city wake through the window, the sky still swollen with clouds. Every sound, the hum of a passing drone, the distant siren, even the drip of rain felt sharper, more deliberate. It was the sound of time running out. Salira slept near the altar, Lumen in her arms, wrapped in a borrowed blanket. Malik had spent the night preparing their route with Jada, safe houses, back roads and dead zones where the division's signal couldn't reach. But the exhaustion in his sister's face lingered like a shadow. She kept pacing, her fingers tapping the side of her comm device. "You haven't eaten," Malik said quietly. Not hungry, she replied. You're worried. I'm thinking, she said, voice tense. About how long before they find us. About what happens if they do. Malik leaned back, crossing his arms. We'll be gone before then. You don't know that, she said sharply. You're one man, Malik. You can't protect all of them. The division doesn't lose people. They erase them. He frowned. You sound like you already gave up. She turned, eyes flashing. Don't you dare say that. I've been risking my job, my freedom, everything to help you. I've lied to people who could end my career with one call. Malik softened. I know, I'm grateful, but right now I can't stop. Jada exhaled, rubbing her temples. I just want this to end before it kills you. The silence between them thickened. Malik looked at his hands, calloused and rough, wondering how far those same hands could push fate before breaking. By afternoon, the church had grown quieter. Salira prepared small bags with what food they had left, humming an old Kalani melody that filled the space like a prayer. Malik checked the cruiser outside, scanning the sky for drones. None yet. But they would come. They always came. Jada stepped outside to make a call. She said it was to one of her contacts in the media, a favor to create a diversion when they left. Malik didn't question it. He wanted to trust her. Minutes passed. The air thickened again, uneasy. When she returned, her face was calm, too calm. Everything's set, she said. We'll have a window in about an hour. Malik nodded. Good. We'll be ready. He didn't see the tremor in her hands as she tucked the comm device into her pocket. When the time came, Salira held Lumen close, eyes bright but calm. Where will we go? She asked. North, Malik said. Mountains, maybe. Fewer eyes there. Jada adjusted the baby's sling, her voice barely above a whisper. Just stay off the main roads. They stepped outside. The air smelled of wet soil and fuel. Malik started the cruiser, engine rumbling low. Salira climbed in with the baby. Jada hesitated by the door. I'll cover for you, she said softly. If they come asking. Malik smiled faintly. You always did. But as they pulled away, Jada stood frozen, her heart pounding. The message she'd sent minutes ago burned in her mind, a transmission to an old contact inside the ethics division. She'd told herself it was the only way. If she could trade information for Malik's safety, maybe they'd spare him. Maybe they'd let him live. Inside the cruiser, Malik glanced at the rearview mirror. His sister was shrinking into the distance, her figure small against the grey horizon. Something in her expression unsettled him, something he couldn't name. He looked at Salira, who was watching him quietly. You trust her, she said softly. I do, he answered, though his voice lacked conviction. The road stretched ahead, slick and empty. For the first time since the night he'd found Salira, Malik felt the faint sting of doubt. Far behind them, a fleet of black drones lifted into the air. They moved in formation, fast and precise, their sensors locked on a single heat signature leaving Mechanicsville. The division had found them. Atlanta had not slept. By dawn, news had spread through every channel, every back street, every group chat from Mechanicsville to Old Fourth Ward. The division's pursuit of a fugitive human accused of harboring alien property had become the city's new headline. But behind the official language, people knew the truth. A man was being hunted for protecting a mother and her child. Malik didn't see the chaos unfold firsthand. He was miles away, hidden in an abandoned auto shop near Cascade Road. Salira sat beside him, rocking Lumen gently as light filtered through broken windows. Jada had not arrived, though she'd promised to meet them before sunrise. The silence in Malik's mind grew louder with every passing minute. He scrolled through his tablet, the cracked screen showing fragments of live feeds. Crowds filled the streets downtown, carrying signs, chanting names. One banner read, "No more stolen lives." Another simply said, "We stand with Malik Turner." His throat tightened. "They're marching," he said quietly. "For us." Salira looked up, her voice soft. "For truth." "They don't even know the half of it," he murmured. Her gaze held his. They do not need to. The heart knows when something is wrong, even if the mind is told to look away. He wanted to believe that. He wanted to believe that humanity could still listen to its better angels. But he also knew the division wouldn't tolerate defiance, not from citizens and especially not from him. The sound of approaching engines pulled him back. Malik rushed to the window. Down the hill, police cruisers formed a blockade, lights flashing blue and white against the grey sky. Above, drones buzzed like hornets. "They found us," he said under his breath. Salira's arms tightened around Lumen. "Then this ends today." Before Malik could respond, his earpiece crackled. "Malik, it's Jada," the voice came, rushed and uneven. "Where are you?" he snapped. "I'm sorry," she said, breath hitching. "They were already watching me. I tried to bargain to give them time, but they're coming in force. The only thing stopping them now is the crowd downtown." Malik froze. "What crowd?" "There's a protest at Centennial Square. Thousands of people. Community leaders, pastors, old activists. They showed up. They're demanding your freedom." His chest tightened. "Jada, what did you tell them?" "The truth," she whispered. "That you were protecting a child, not breaking a law." He pressed his forehead against the window, torn between anger and gratitude. "You shouldn't have done that." "I couldn't let them bury you in silence," she said. "Whatever happens next, at least people are watching." The line cut out. Malik turned to Salira. "We can't run anymore. They'll follow us wherever we go." Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. Then perhaps running was never the answer. Outside, the wail of sirens grew louder, a chorus rising with the chants of distant protesters. The city itself seemed to tremble. Downtown, the crowd had swelled to tens of thousands. Old civil rights hymns mixed with modern rhythm and drums, voices rising like a tide. At the front stood pastors, teachers, workers, men and women whose families had once faced the same kind of fear. They carried photos of Malik, of Salira and her child, not as symbols of rebellion but of unity. In the control center, division commanders argued. "We can't move on the fugitive while cameras are rolling," one said. "We'll turn him into a martyr." But higher orders came fast. "Proceed anyway." Back at the shop, Malik heard the engines rev. He turned to Salira, determination burning through exhaustion. "If this is it, we face it together." She nodded, pressing a kiss to Lumen's forehead. "Together." Malik looked toward the horizon, where the rising sun bled orange through the storm clouds. Somewhere beyond those clouds, thousands of voices were shouting his name, not in fear, but in faith. And for the first time, Malik understood that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to stand even when the world was watching you fall. The sirens had become constant now, a mechanical heartbeat pulsing through the streets. Malik stood near the back door of the auto shop, his hands trembling as he checked the last of the supplies. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. He could hear the distant hum of drones closer with every pass. Salira sat nearby with Lumen in her arms, her gaze steady, her movements deliberate. The child slept, unaware of the storm closing in. Malik's comm device flickered. The voice on the other end was sharp, official, and cold. "Malik Turner, this is Commander Renner of the U.S. Genetic Ethics Division. You are surrounded. You have one chance to surrender the hybrid child and the alien female. Do so now and you will live." Malik swallowed hard. "You hear that?" he murmured to Salira. She nodded. "They offer mercy they do not mean." He looked around, his mind spinning. There were no exits left, only choices, and both led to pain. "If we hand Lumen over, they'll dissect him. If we don't, they'll kill us." Salira met his eyes, calm amid the chaos. "Then at least we will die free." The words struck something deep inside him. Malik stepped closer, crouching beside her. "No. That's not how this ends. There's still a way." "Your sister," she said softly. "You trust her still?" He hesitated. "I don't know anymore." Outside, loudspeakers boomed again. "You have 60 seconds to comply. After that, lethal force will be authorized." Malik's pulse raced. The walls seemed to close in. He could feel the fear pressing down, demanding surrender. But beneath it, something stronger rose, a clarity that burned through every doubt. He turned to Salira. You once told me your people sing before battle. Yes, she said, to remember who we are. Then remember now, he said, because we're not giving them anything. He pulled his tablet from his pocket, connecting it to the comm link Jada had set up. The feed opened to a live broadcast of the protests downtown. Thousands of people still filled the streets, chanting his name, demanding justice. The signal trembled with static, but the message was clear. The world was watching. Malik hit record. "This is Malik Turner," he began, his voice rough but steady. "They're calling me a criminal. But the only crime here is what's been done in the dark. The child they want, he's innocent. He's proof that we can share this world, not rule it. If they take him, it won't stop here. It never does." He looked at Salira, who held Lumen close. "You said light endures," he whispered. "Let's make sure it does." She nodded, her lips forming a quiet Kalani prayer. Malik uploaded the video to the live feed. Within seconds, it streamed across every platform, every screen tied to the protests. People saw the truth, the small child sleeping peacefully, the exhausted mechanic standing beside him, the alien mother clutching hope itself. Downtown, the crowd roared louder. "Let them go!" they shouted. "Let them live!" Commander Renner's voice cut through the static again, tighter now. "Turner, shut down that transmission or we'll open fire." Malik ignored him. "You fire on us," he said, "and the whole world will see it." A pause. The silence stretched long enough for hope to flicker. Then gunfire shattered it. A burst of light struck the wall behind them, spraying dust and debris. Malik shielded Salira and the baby, heart pounding. The broadcast stayed live. Sparks flew, alarms wailed, and the crowd watching from miles away screamed in outrage. Malik's last transmission echoed through every speaker. "You can't kill what's already awake." And then the feed went black. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. In the darkness of the shop, Malik whispered one final vow to himself. Whatever happens, they won't take him again. The first explosion came just after sunset, shaking the ground beneath Atlanta's narrow streets. Malik felt the shockwave roll through the floor of the shop, followed by the shriek of sirens and the angry hum of drones overhead. Smoke billowed in the distance, thick, dark, alive. Somewhere downtown, the protests had tipped from peace into chaos. He held Lumen close as Salira looked toward the flickering horizon. "The city burns," she whispered. "Is this what freedom looks like?" Malik shook his head. "No. This is what fear does when it's cornered." Outside, loudspeakers barked new orders. "Curfew in effect. All civilians must remain indoors. Anyone assisting the fugitive will be detained." The streets that had once carried gospel songs and laughter were now filled with shouting, the echo of boots, and the metallic buzz of enforcement drones. Malik could hear the division tightening its grip, but also the people pushing back. Jada's voice cut through the static of his comm. "Malik, it's worse than they said." The protests spread to every district. People are demanding answers. The division's story isn't holding up. He pressed the device close. "Where are you?" "I'm at the news hub downtown," she replied. "We've been broadcasting your video on every major feed. The public's seeing everything. They're calling for a ceasefire for investigation." "You did this, Malik." He glanced toward Salira. "We did this, but there was no time to celebrate. The division wouldn't lose quietly." Malik knew how men like Renner thought. Control mattered more than truth. If they couldn't silence him, they'd destroy everything around him. The whine of engines grew louder. Salira stiffened. "They are coming." Malik grabbed the duffel from under the bench, tools, batteries, a few ration packs. "We move now." Through the back alleys toward the river, there's an old subway line that still runs under the levee. Jamal told me about it once. Salira cradled Lumen tightly. "He saved us before. Can we trust him again?" Malik hesitated. "He believed in what's right. That's enough for now." They slipped into the night. The air smelled of burning plastic and wet concrete. Red lights flashed against the clouds as drones scanned the streets. Malik kept to the shadows, every step deliberate. Lumen stirred but did not cry, as if instinctively understanding the danger. Halfway down the block, a flash of light illuminated a familiar figure stepping from a doorway. Jamal. His lab coat was gone, replaced by a dark jacket, his expression haunted. "Malik," he said, breathless. "Now you have to go. They've declared martial control over the city. Renner's ordered full suppression. He's calling it a containment emergency." Malik frowned. "Containment? Of what?" "You," Jamal said bitterly. "You and what you represent." Behind them, a series of small explosions rippled through the skyline. Fires spread along the rooftops, casting the sky in orange. From afar came the faint sound of drums and chants, still rising through the smoke, a city refusing to go silent. Jamal stepped closer, lowering his voice. "There's a transport capsule in the old freight tunnel 3 blocks east. It's not official, but it'll get you past the southern perimeter. I've already cleared the codes." Malik's eyes narrowed. "Why are you helping again?" "Because I helped build the lie that's killing this city," Jamal said quietly. "And because that child deserves more than a lab number." Malik clasped his friend's shoulder. "Then this is where we start fixing it." Jamal nodded, slipping a small chip into Malik's hand. "Proof. Files, logs, genetic data, the whole program. If the world sees this, they can't deny what's been done." A distant boom rattled the air. Flames rose from downtown, reflected in Jamal's eyes. "Go now," he said, "before they lock everything down." Malik turned to Salira. "Hold on to him. We're almost there." They ran through the growing haze, guided only by the glow of fire and faith. The city roared behind them, not in defeat, but in awakening. As they reached the edge of the freight tunnel, Malik looked back once. Atlanta burned, but in its fire truth was finally visible, and for the first time he believed they might survive the night. Dawn crept slow and golden across the Georgia hills, washing the world in the soft colors of survival. The fires of Atlanta had burned through the night, but here, miles beyond the chaos, the air was quiet again. Malik stood by the riverbank, the weight of exhaustion heavy in his bones. His clothes were torn, his hands raw, but for the first time in days, he wasn't running. Salira sat on a fallen log, cradling Lumen. The child blinked awake as sunlight brushed his face. His skin shimmered faintly where the light touched it, silver and brown woven together like dawn and dusk. Malik watched in silence, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "He looks stronger," he said softly. Salira nodded. "He feels peace. He knows the storm has passed." Malik crouched beside her, eyes still on the river. The water reflected the sky, clear, endless, full of promise. "The city's gonna need time," he murmured. "They'll rebuild, argue, maybe even forget for a while. But the truth's out now. They can't bury it again." Salira looked at him, her voice gentle. "You showed them what it means to be human." He shook his head. "You showed me." A faint breeze carried the scent of pine and wet earth. For the first time since he could remember, Malik let himself breathe without fear. Every sound felt sacred, the whisper of leaves, the river's steady rhythm, the small coo from Lumen as he reached toward the sunlight. He turned to Salira. "What will you do now?" She smiled faintly, her eyes distant. "Raise him to know both our worlds. Teach him not to hate what he does not understand." Malik nodded. "That's a start." From his pocket, he pulled the data chip Jamal had given him. The small piece of metal seemed unremarkable, yet it held the power to change everything. A record of experiments, names, files, truth. He rolled it between his fingers. "This needs to go somewhere safe," he said. Salira looked at it, then at him. "And you?" "I'll find Jamal again," he replied, "or what's left of him. If he's still alive, he'll know how to use this right." She reached out, placing her hand over his. "You have already done enough, Malik Turner. Let the world carry its own weight now." He smiled, tired but genuine. "Maybe. But I can't stop caring about it. Not after all this." She regarded him for a moment, then nodded. "Then go with strength, human of Earth. You have earned the light you walk in." He chuckled. "You talk like a preacher." "On my world," she said softly, "truth is a kind of prayer." They sat together in comfortable silence. The sky stretched wide above them, filled with migrating clouds that looked like drifting ships. Malik watched the way the morning light touched everything it reached, softening even the scars left behind. He thought of Jada, his sister, his betrayer, his savior, and hoped she was safe. He thought of the city, of people marching still, holding signs that now meant something real. Lumen laughed suddenly, a bright, bubbling sound that cut through the quiet. Malik grinned and leaned closer. "That's your father's laugh," Salira said, amusement lighting her face. He blinked. "My what?" Her smile deepened. "Our child needed both strength and heart. You gave him both." For a moment, Malik couldn't speak. The world seemed to tilt, not in shock but in understanding. He looked at the boy again, his son, and everything inside him settled into place. "Then I guess I really can't walk away now," he said softly. Salira's eyes glistened. "Nor should you." The river shimmered, catching the full glow of morning. Malik stood, gazing at the horizon. "We'll build something better," he said. "Something that lasts." Salira rose beside him, Lumen cradled between them. Together, they faced the light. "If this story touched your heart," Malik's voice seemed to whisper in memory, "don't let it fade. Subscribe, share it, and keep listening for the next one, because hope doesn't end here." And as the sun climbed higher over the quiet Georgia fields, the sky above them opened wide, a promise of what tomorrow could still become.